on the cusp of a tremendous showdown this November 22nd. We have welterweights that will be facing off, and there are some experts who are lending their thoughts about what may transpire when we get a chance to see Devin Haney challenge Brian Norman Jr. for the WBO welterweight title that is currently in the clutches of Norman Jr. Some experts are even saying that in order to win, Haney may have to be perfect because Norman has one-punch knockout ability. But this is why we have the fights, so it can be determined who a winner would be. And I have to say that as far as what's been happening and transpiring in both of these men's career, either man can win this fight. But let's talk about this article that was in Boxing News 24. You know, the fanzine that's all against Devin Haney. Quality boxing requires quality insight because sometimes fighters are just a bit better than the people who give their view on who will and who will not win. And such is the case where we find Devin Haney Jr. about to go out and face Brian Norman Jr. Excuse me, I said Devin Haney Jr. Brian Norman Jr. And it will be a test where Devin will try to become a three-weight division champion. Now, according to Boxing News 24, an interview conducted by James Buddy Mcgirt states that Haney must be perfect for him to defeat the WBO welterweight champion Brian Norman Jr. in their fight in November in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And according to what Mcgirt is stating, he says the former two-division champion Haney, who happens to presently have a record of 32-0 with 16 KOs, has got to be running on all 12 cylinders because Norman Jr., whom he'll be facing, is going to enter the ring himself, and he's going to bring his record of 28-0 with 22 KOs. And so Mcgirt feels that Norman has one-punch power. He doesn't need to land combinations to knock out his opponents. He says that Norman can wreck Haney's career, knocking him out and finishing what Ryan Garcia started last year in the beatdown he administered to him. Despite dropping Haney 3 times, Ryan was unable to finish him due to his poor stamina. If Norman hurts Haney, he's a great finisher and it will likely end quickly. Wow. And that's coming from a former world title holder and a gentleman who seems to have a grip on the sport by training top-class fighters. But I believe he's looking through an improper lens, because one thing you can say about Devin Haney is he's a complete fighter. He can do a little bit of it all. He can stand and trade. He can punch for punch. He can even move laterally in and out and work behind a jab. He's pretty solid defensively. But people are overlooking that Ryan had advantages in the matchup with Haney that they were unplanned for by the Haney camp. They'll never be caught sleeping like that again. But at the same time, you have to respect the sport for always giving us something that we're not necessarily accustomed to. Now, in his battle against Santillan, we saw Norman Jr. in there battering Santillan, and it took a beat down in a real sense of the word against Santillan for Norman to get the stoppage. It wasn't a one-punch type of a deal. There was back and forth, give and take, and due to damage sustained, Santillan succumbed. So I don't know what Mcgirt is thinking about. If he's thinking about Jin Sasaki from Japan, that gentleman was not world class. You could tell by the way he was stopped. And he was injured early in the fight by just going in, wading in, right into danger. And Norman was able to land the shots that could make a difference in a fight when you have no defense. The article goes on to say that from Mcgirt's point of view, all 12 cylinders, you're fighting a bigger man. He has one-punch knockout power. Norman doesn't need a combination to get you out of there, said Coach Buddy Mcgirt to Mill City Boxing about Devin Haney needing to be perfect when he fights Brian Norman Jr. on November 22nd. So, Haney has to be running on all cylinders. You know, it's interesting that Mcgirt would take such a position, because usually a fighter who is more adept and has more of what has been shown, and that's Haney. Now, when you remember him fighting Regis Prograis, he totally took Prograis apart. And Prograis is a pretty darn good puncher himself. Now, I'm not saying that his style and Norman Jr.'s style is the same, because they're not. But what I'm saying is, if anyone thinks that Haney is not battle tested, or even hasn't put the work in to be aware of what he's facing, then it's just a miscalculation on anyone else's part. But these two men will be bringing something to the ring when they face one another that is of high-spirited competition. And you have to be able to respect that when it comes down to fighters doing their thing, because if you don't, you'll miss the check marks. The article goes on. Everything has to be on point. Offense, defense, foot movement, and head movement. Everything has to be working that night. He can't second guess anything. You can't do that against a guy like Norman. He'll wait. I seen him hit this guy, and I'm like, holy damn, he said, Mcgirt, about Giovanni Santillan. Devin has downplayed Norman Jr.'s threat level, saying he doesn't know any of the guys he's fought. At the same time, he's talked about his experience against top-level fighters. Haney does have an advantage in that area, but not that big of a one. The majority of the top fighters Haney fought were past their prime. These are some of the fated fighters that Devin Haney has fought. Notice how the article is slanting everything against Haney. Jose Ramirez, Vasil Lomachenko, Yuriorkis Gamboa, Regis Prograis, Joseph Diaz, Jorge Linares, and Juan Carlos Burgos. Now, my counter to that is this. Haney has wanted to face other competition, but there have been fighters who were unwilling to sign and fight him. Now, we have to respect Norman Jr. for accepting the challenge because he wants to make his name in the sport, and there's nothing wrong with that. Norman is doing exactly what he should do, take on the best challenges available. Now, it could have been Jaron Boots Ennis, but Boots Ennis decided to walk away. That's not Norman Jr.'s fault. And it just so happens that he's a very likable fighter presently on the come up, and Haney, despite what some pundits have against him, is a admirable fighter as well because he's a clean guy and he goes about being a professional the proper way, being signed up for anti-doping, looking to seek out the best quality of opposition, even though the guys on the other side don't necessarily want to face him. See, Haney brings that threat of being able to really solidly outbox an opponent. And in today's time, these guys are embarrassed by not looking good, not looking their best, or someone embarrassing them with the lack of dimensions to their fight game. Norman Jr. is not worried about any of that, which is why he readily has accepted this challenge, as he should. And so I believe that at the end of the day, when the two face one another, it's going to be the type of fight that the fans would like to see. And going in, you could have your favor, but there's no clear-cut, defined 50-50 fight like this outside of these two men. Now, one guy can punch really good, the other guy can really box pretty good. So we're going to see something there. Now, the article is written by Ken Woods, a ringside boxing analyst, and he's been covering fights since 2018. The link for the article will be in the description box, but I'll let people think for themselves as they read that article what they think they'll find and what they'll gain out of this. But to me, when you talk about putting these two fighters together, Haney and Norman Jr., it's the type of showdown that fans look forward to seeing. I believe that Brian Norman Jr. is going to give Devin a good challenge, and Devin is going to give Brian Norman Jr. a good challenge. But we'll have to see when they face one another what it turns out to be, because both men bring what I like, and that's excitement. But what do you think? This is Stormy B Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what your thoughts are about these two men having a showdown in November. And who do you have winning? We'll have a breakdown of the fight with more detailed descriptions of how I may see the action taking place. Leave comments and let's discuss further. Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.